Okay guys, so we've kind of gone through the assessment, determining the athlete's goals and timeline, what kind of time do we have to work with. Then we need to plan, the overall schema, what's that camp going to look like, or what's that training program going to look like leading up to competition. Kind of a bird's eye view, a big picture, right? And now we got to execute. Once we start to execute, you got to start writing those individual workouts out. Now, this one is just, when I'm thinking about writing a workout, there's certain aspects that I use almost every single time an athlete comes in to see me. We do have the primary goal, which is going to be the majority of the focus, but each workout kind of flows a certain way. When we talked about exercise order earlier in the program, what order different things need to be in there. So this is kind of how I run every single session when a kid comes to see me. We always start with warm-up, and this is one thing that I've noticed, trainers, coaches, athletes, everybody's kind of guilty of it, but 5 minutes walking on the treadmill is not, in my opinion, a warm-up. The goal of a warm-up is to prepare the athlete for the work that they're about to do and help them avoid injury, okay? So for me, the warm-up involves a lot of mobility, right? We do a lot of mobility work. If we've assessed that athlete, I know where certain joints aren't working the way that they should. I know what muscles aren't firing the way that they should. So if a lot of people have a weak stomach, a weak upper back, they're rounded forward, they got a weak butt, which is super common because we sit so much. These are all things that are going to be addressed in the warm-up. So we do a lot of mobility work, activation work. We raise the body core temperature. We might do some crawling, some locomotion drills, running, side shuffles, all those types of things. And that is going to take about 10 to 15 minutes, and that's completely fine. This, in my opinion, is our insurance policy to make sure that our athletes don't get hurt. A lot of combat athletes are notorious for always getting injured and hurt because, it's just the nature of the sport, And if the more that we can do to prepare that athlete and help them survive training, the better. So if that turns into 15 to 20 minutes, it's fine with me, right? This is all well worth the time. After that athlete's warmed up, we want to fire up the nervous system and do some sort of speed, agility, and quickness work, whether it's some sort of sprinting, agility drills, jumping, plyometric drills, and plyometric, progressions, whether it's throwing, medicine ball throws, explosive work. Even into, if it's applicable and appropriate, we'll get into more explosive lifts like Olympic lifting and stuff like that. Okay, so that explosive piece of the puzzle comes after the warm-up to kind of fire up the nervous system, okay? After we do that explosive piece, we're going to move on to a strength component. And that really doesn't matter to me where they're at in their camp. I think just having a good foundation of strength is important all the time. And I break that category down into simple. Like Dan John said, and we learned it from him, squat, hinge, push, pull, and carry, okay? And if you want to think about strength work in those categories, I think it's a real simple way to break down your core lifts. It's how we've done it in the exercise library that you'll find in this program. And you can dig into that more to find out more specifics of the different exercises that are available. But strength component will come next. By doing the explosive work first, that'll fire up that nervous system and help you be stronger when you do move on to that component, okay? And then if and when we do conditioning work, it'll be towards the end, okay? Like I said before, we wouldn't want to be doing the explosive, highly technical work after being already fatigued, a lot of times. So I'll move a lot of the conditioning components towards the end, and then we'll finish with a cool down. And just like we said in that like kind of 12-week timeline, what exactly we do in these different periods of time, or like this says, how much of each of these areas we do for each workout is really determined by the goal and where we're at in our camp. So for example, if we're early on in the camp, I might be trying to spend a little bit more time trying to correct some aches and injuries and stuff like that, right? We might not do a tremendous amount of speed, agility, and quickness work because we're so early on in camp, or maybe it's not the primary goal, right? We might just be working primarily, or these components, the strength and conditioning aspects, might be a bigger percentage of the workout early on, and then as we get closer to camp, maybe some high-end conditioning and the speed, agility, that power, endurance might become a bigger percentage of the workout. Does that make sense? So these are all variable. They'll change throughout the camp, and you can think of it that way, of how much of each one of these areas you want to cover, depending on the athlete standing in front of you, the timeline, and the goals that you guys have, plus what they're doing in their skill training, which is a huge part of this, okay? If we do too much, and we blast these kids, and then they have to go spar, and they get wrecked, or they get hurt sparring, or they look like crap, their coaches don't have a good idea what's going on with that athlete, and it might come back to you. So when you are developing programs for these athletes, just like we said before, taking in all those exercise variables, taking that into account, monitoring your athlete and seeing kind of where they're at in their camp, and then programming efficiently, you'll be able to develop better programs, and you want to stimulate those athletes, not annihilate them, right? So just a few more ways to kind of lay out your workouts, a couple more things to think about, and as we go, we're just getting more and more fine-tuned.